Today, we are super excited to share with you a microphone solution for getting back all that low end that's getting left on the table when we only use one mic on a bass drum or any other part of the kit that we want to get more low end out of. We are proud to introduce to you the next generation Moon Mic. Usually when you're hearing drums in a performance on a recording, you're hearing every single one of those drums entering more than one microphone just by virtue of them all being really close together. Beyond this incidental experience, there's also options in the world of actually putting multiple microphones on a single drum to specifically capture different parts of its sound. To that end, Dave from Moon Mic got in touch with us about showcasing what he's invented. It's a new spin on something to capture just low frequencies and really fill out the sound of your bass drum, and as we discovered today, any part of the kit that has a lot of low end that you want to capture. We're going to put this mic through its paces today in conjunction with our faithful D12 VR, but today we're going to use it in its intended purpose when it's paired with a larger microphone like this to divide the frequency response and have one mic more responsible for attack and punch and the other more responsible for low end. In a professional recording or performance environment, there's a high likelihood that these microphones would be affected by EQ or compression or other things like that, but for the sake of clarity and absolute honesty, we're not doing anything of the sort to these. This is just the natural sound, fully unaffected. In order to kick things off, we're going to start with a very low tuning, basically just above a wrinkle with a pillow inside, and we're going to place both of the microphones so that their diaphragms are just about equidistant from the resonant head. Let's hear some isolated single strokes and then a little bit of this setup in the context of a groove. At this point, we're not hearing anything overwhelmingly different or shocking from what we think of as a good sounding bass drum. That's because each of these mics is doing its individual job and we've balanced them so that each one is present in the mix and complementing each other. Now we're going to cycle through a few different microphone setups over the course of a looped beat so that you can hear what happens when we take the Moon Mic out, when we put it back in, and also what it sounds like on its own. As you can see, if we just had the D12, it's not that we even know that we're missing something, but once you add in a mic that's capturing more of the lower frequencies exclusively and adding those into the sound of the original dynamic mic, all of a sudden there's a whole secondary character to this drum that we didn't have access to before, and that now, because it's in a separate mic, we can blend to our heart's desire from section to section in a tune, or just to balance out the sound of the drum. Let's listen to a little bit more from this setup before we move on to a new tuning. For our second demonstration, we've made some adjustments to both the tuning of the drum and how we've set up the microphones. The first thing we did is we spun the resonant head so that we would have access to the port on it from a higher angle in order to boom the D12 VR inside the drum and isolate it dramatically. We've also moved the Moon Mic closer to the center of the drum and backed it out to between 3 and 4 inches from the skin, where in the first example, it was more like an inch away. The last thing we did is we raised the tension on both the batter head and the resonant head to give us more low end and actually drop the pitch of the drum. You didn't mishear me. adding tension to both of the heads so that they can promote more low end out of the drum. It sounds totally backwards, but you'll see. This may be as shocking to you as it was to us the first time that we experimented with it, but bear in mind that when we tune to just above a wrinkle, the heads can't really resonate much at all, and we need resonance and more tension to allow low frequencies to come out of the heads. Whether or not you use 2 microphones or 1 microphone or no microphones at all in your practice, it is worth experimenting with pitching the kick up if you're looking for more beef in the low end. The combination of an internal mic close to the strike zone of the batter head and the moon mic on the outside is picking up all of this low end that we've now dialed into the instrument, and it's not turning into a problematic amount of sustain or some kind of 8080 thing that we have to manage in post. It's just giving us more of what we're looking for when we're using a large drum like this and want to take up more space in that range. Additionally, we have extreme isolation on the D12 VR now because it's fully inside of the drum, which means if we wanted to EQ it to promote, say, beater attack, and then utilize the moon mic to bring the low end back in, that's now available to us with virtually no bleed from the rest of the kit. Now, let's do the same thing we did before, a looped beat, 4 on the floor, nice and easy. We're going to hear the whole kit, and then we're going to take the moon mic out of the mix, bring it back in, and then just hear the moon mic on its own. The moon mic is a culmination of many years of experimentation, both in DIY scenarios and with some other products that have been on the market for a while, that effectively build a microphone out of a small speaker and are wired in such a way that it receives audio rather than pumping audio out. What this does for us with such a large diaphragm speaker is it promotes low end, and in the case of the moon mic, it is also specifically built internally to reject high frequencies and really focus its presence in the low mids down, getting into sub frequencies. Engineers and artists have been doing this kind of thing for decades, and it's a really effective way to capture the low portion of a bass drum sound, which then you can pipe into a DI, EQ, and compress to your heart's content, and use it as a character portion of the bass drum more than just the singular sound of it. As you can hear, it doesn't have a lot of attack. It doesn't have anything really in the high frequencies at all, which means that any other mic you're going to use on that bass drum is going to fill out exactly what this mic is missing. The design of the moon mic alleviates all of the frustrations and tricky bits about using other products that are this kind of design. We don't have to attenuate it or pad it in any kind of way because it's designed to run already by itself without that. And on top of that, the build is so robust you could consider this for touring, for studio situations, or any other time where you want this kind of microphone. Let's get into our third demonstration. We're going to up the SPL a little bit by taking the Reso head completely off of the drum so that all the air from striking the batter head goes straight into this microphone. This is a particularly interesting use of a mic like this because when we take the resonant head off, we're effectively stifling the drum's capacity to resonate at all. All the air is leaving, going straight out, and what do we do to get some low end back into that sound? This is a common setup for players that either want to play very busy patterns that have super clean articulation, or if they're making music where there's an awful lot going on and they don't want the kick sound to take up too much space. At the same time, that doesn't mean that we want to sacrifice all the low end of a bass drum. By adding a moon mic, we can have exactly as much as we want and do exactly what's right for the music, whether it's for playing busy or for just having a little more low end for that busy music. Let's hear the alternative mixes of this setup as we did with the previous two. As with the previous examples, and particularly in this one, this sound is ready to go out of the box. We don't have elongated low end that we have to manage with a gate. We also don't have bleed from frequencies that we don't want going into this microphone. This means for us that once we figure out how we want to set our bass drum up and how we want to tune it, this is a set it and forget it situation. It's going to give us low end, it's going to give us the portion that we're looking for, and it's super easy to blend with the other microphone to get the ultimate sound. The Moon mic is distributed by DW, and one of the things DW is known for is the robustness of all of their hardware, roadworthy and pretty heavy duty across the board. DW devised a stand for this mic that's proprietary and basically means that we don't need to sandbag it, we don't need to worry about how heavy this microphone actually is. It comes with it and everything you need is in the box ready to go. Because it is a versatile stand and has some options and ways that we can turn the mic around and bend it around, we decided to put the stand through its paces and also test out just what happens when we give this mic more sustain by putting it underneath our floor tom. Let's go ahead and hear what happens when we do this. Before we talk about exactly what's happening here, let's listen to a little comparison. This setup is a little bit different than what we're doing with the bass drum because we actually have the microphones on opposing heads, but the result is fairly similar. The batter head mic is getting attack, it's getting some low end, and it's getting some sustain, whereas the Moon mic underneath is picking up just the body of the drum, particularly in the low end, which once you hear it taken out of the mix, you can realize just how much that's adding in if we choose to use it. Utilizing the microphones this way will require a phase inversion on one or the other of the microphones in order for them to speak properly. The batterhead microphone, as it usually does, is picking up a tremendous amount of attack and also capturing a fair amount of body from the drum, while on the bottom we're getting virtually no attack by design with the Moon mic, but we are picking up a tremendous amount of body from the drum and more sustain than we were getting out of the bass drum because it's virtually unmuffled, but it's still controllable. We're not having to gate it. We're not having to do any kind of post-production wizardry to get it to do this. The Moon mic does exactly what it says it's going to do. It's an easy set and forget way to get a whole lot more body out of any low-end oriented drum on the kit. It is worth noting that if you have a deeper floor tom or you sit very low, you may have to use a different stand or a mounting scenario to get it underneath there, as the stand that it comes with only goes so low, but we had no trouble with ours. Let's talk tech specs for just a second about this microphone, because it really is something special and unique. The first thing to know about it is that it has a very tailored frequency response to make sure that high end from cymbals and snare drums doesn't bleed into the sound, while at the same time it's rolled off in the super low lows so that we don't end up having to EQ that sub-frequency information out later in order to get the part that we want. We are also using the next generation version of this microphone today, which includes added mask to the cone, which further controls the response of the microphone, really erasing the need for us to have to do much post-production to it or do anything to control its response. As we said before, it doesn't require phantom power, and it also doesn't require a pad or any kind of attenuation. So if you're new to recording or have limited equipment for getting sound into your computer or whatever you might use, this is a real set and forget, no horsing around solution for this kind of sound. On the flip side, if you are a professional either in studio or on the road and on stage every day, this is an excellent solution for getting that low end back into your drum, especially if you're doing internal miking and getting a lot of attack but missing out on part of the power of the drum. It's built to last, the housing is super strong, and it also comes in chrome as we have today, as well as a powder coated version that's a little less reflective. We hope you enjoyed checking this microphone out with us today. Thanks so much to Dave for sharing with us. And if you're interested in checking this out on your own, follow the link below. Find out everything else that you want to know about this microphone and go get that low end.